Hi everyone, and welcome to Project 7. For Project 7, we're going to revisit Project 5, the first ground plan you drew, and we're going to generate the elevations of the walls that are in that project. So we're going to use the information from Project 5 to create Project 7. So you want to start by opening your Project 5 and saving it as your Project 7. There are at least three different ways of approaching this. There's an all 2D approach, and there are at least two different 3D approaches to generating the elevations from the ground plan. I'm going to show you with a couple of the walls the all 2D approach, and then we're going to switch to one of the 3D approaches to finish this project. And then when we do Project 8, which will be generating the elevations from your space, from your Project 6, we will use the third or second 2D approach. So you should get all three of them. So in order to start, you want to go to the scenery layer. We're going to continue drawing the elevations in this same file on this same layer, and then hopefully it will start to become apparent the power of the sheet layers, which will allow us to do all of the drawing for this set of plans in the same file, and then arrange them on different sheets using viewports and sheet layers, so that we can print them out in different sheets, but we don't have to have them arranged in separate files. So go to the scenery layer, and then we're going to look at our example here and see that all of our walls are 12 feet tall. So that's the first thing we need to know. So in the first step in methods 1 or 2, which is going to be two different ways of drawing separately from the ground plan the elevations. Both of these steps will include copying the plan view of the walls or objects and pasting them into the document. Next week, when we get to the third method, we'll actually do everything in place here in the plan, so you're not actually duplicating things. But duplicating them follows more clearly the traditional 2D method of doing this, and I want you all to have a background in that, so we're going to start with that first. So let's start by putting ourselves in the layout pen. And some people use a layout pen, and some people just start with the medium pen or whatever pen they're going to use. I like to use the layout pen because it kind of reminds me that I haven't actually paid attention to what the line weight should be yet, so I just sort of establish everything, and then I go back afterwards and change the class, or just directly change the attributes to be what I want them to be finally. So what we're going to do is we're going to establish a couple of baselines. We're going to just draw a long line, sort of anywhere, but here, this is going to be the line that we are going to paste the walls onto and align them with, so that everything is lined up. So that's line number 1, and then just draw another line on top of that, and we're going to move that up 4 feet. And this is arbitrary. This is not a rule. This is just me thinking that's probably going to be about the right size, and it may turn out later that we have to move things, but we're going to try that for right now. And then we're going to draw a third line right on top of that, and we're going to move that up 12 feet. And the reason for that is because our walls are 12 feet tall. So the first line we drew is going to be the imaginary line here that is lining up the base of all of the wall plan views. And then the second line that was 4 feet up is going to be this line here that's the bottom of all the walls. And then our 12-foot line is going to be the line that's the top of all the walls. So that's what you've drawn there. So in order to get started, we're just going to copy each wall. So we're going to select the wall, edit, copy, or Command-C, and come over here and paste it. Edit, paste, or Command-V. And I'm just going to place it on my layout line. And then because we're actually going to use this in the drawing, if you look at our final version here, most of the time in theater drawings, we show both the plan and the elevation view together on the same page, because there is some information that you can get from the plan that you can't necessarily get from the elevation. For instance, this wall needs to be beveled. This wall and this wall need to fit together to make a 90-degree corner. There are other ways of building that, and the technical director may decide to do it a different way, but at least by showing it this way, you say to him or her, hey, you need to think about this corner because it needs to be worked out. And then in plan view, you can see things about doors and windows that you can't necessarily see in the elevation. So rather than having to refer back to the first page from the elevation page, generally speaking, most people draw the plan view on the elevation page right under the elevation. So that's what we're going to start with. So here's wall A, and the reason I brought that up, we're going to use this, and you'll notice that this wall is not finished. If you zoom in on it, you'll see that there's, I have zoom line thickness is turned off, I bet, which is why you can't see my lines. So I'm going to go to Tools, Options, Vectorworks, Preferences, Display. Yep, and turn zoom line thicknesses on. Well, now you can actually see the real thickness of the lines. I turn that off sometimes because for two reasons. First, it slows down the drawing a little bit, and also when you're working in 3D, sometimes it's easier to not have to deal with line weights. You can see where corners and things are a little bit easier. But when you're working in 2D or in a final layout drawing, you usually want to see what the dimension or thickness of the line is. So you'll see that this wall is not finished here because where we took it from over here, right here, these two are joined together and there's no line there, but there's an option to close this. So if we select the wall and go over to Object Info, you'll see that there is a category called caps, which are the ends of the wall. So right now we've got the start cap turned on. We can turn the end cap on, or well, that's interesting, it didn't turn on, or we can turn on both. And it should, yeah, it's weird it didn't switch to the end. Sometimes Vectorworks is strange. But at any rate, if you set it to both, then it will completely close the wall. So there's the pasting of wall A. And so we're just going to continue around. We're going to copy wall B. And did I paste by mistake? Let's try that again. Edit, copy. Strange. All right. Then we're going to come over here and edit paste or Command V. And you'll notice that the windows that are part of the wall come with the wall since they're embedded into the wall. So now I need to rotate the wall flat. So I'm going to grab the wall and I'm going to temporarily put it right here. And then I'm going to move it 4 feet again. This is my arbitrary spacing between things. I'm using 4 feet. So in this case, we're going to be 4 feet to the right and 0 feet Y. We may change this later, but 4 feet is going to be my default for everything for right now. And then I'm going to use the rotate tool. With the object selected, I'm going to select the rotate tool, and I'm going to click on the point that I want to rotate about, and then I'm going to click somewhere else, and I'm going to drag down. So there is my wall B, and then I'm going to close the caps on both sides. So there's wall B, so we're going to copy wall C. I'm going to paste that. Is it a rule that the yard people always have to show up when people are recording videos? I think it must be. I'm going to place that there. If I move over there, we're going to close both ends. We'll just continue around. Rotate right. Put it right there. I'm going to close it. Let's see, where was I? That was that. Okay, so here we're here. Paste, Command V. 4 feet. Both. Here. Oops. Close both ends. Next would be here. Paste. Gonna line that up there. I'm gonna go ahead and rotate this. I could move it first or I could rotate it first. It doesn't really matter. Now you'll see that that joined together because that's what the wall does. But when I move it, it will unjoin. And we can close the ends. And then we've got this wall. Copy. Sometimes you have to think about which way to rotate it because we're always going to rotate it so the front of the wall is facing down for what we're doing here. Or really what you want to do is rotate it so all of the walls are facing in the same direction. It may not necessarily always be that they're facing down. Usually it's that they're facing down, but the important thing is that they're all facing in the same direction. And then I'm not going to draw this wall because it is identical to this wall. So I'm just going to make a note on this wall to build 2 of them and reverse one of them. So if you have multiples of something, you don't necessarily need to draw it multiple times. You can just draw it once and put a note on the drawing that says, build 6 of these or whatever. I can't remember if we're drawing these 2 or not. Let's see. Yeah, we're not. You would draw all of them, but there's not enough room on the page to do the hallway. What you would do, of course, is just have another page. Or however many pages that you need. I've seen box sets like this that have had 5 or 6 pages of wall elevations, but of course the purpose of these projects is to introduce you to the methods, not necessarily to get a complete set of plans. So if you were really drawing this, you would want to do these 2 walls and also the backdrop, but we're gonna stop here. So there are all of the walls copied and pasted and rotated in place, and we're now ready to actually draw the elevations. So if we reference our drawing here, we'll see that wall A is just a plain wall. B is a wall with windows in it. C, D, E, F are plain walls. D and E have an indication of where the stairs are. And then G is a wall with a door in it. So it's what we would expect. All the walls are 12 feet tall. So we're going to establish the major elements of the walls first, and then we're going to go back in and draw the molding in. And what we're going to do is draw wall A and wall B using the all 2D method, and then we're going to switch and redo B with the hybrid 2D 3D method, and then we'll use that hybrid method on all the rest of the walls. So first is wall A, which is just a plain wall, so it's pretty easy. So we see what it looks like here in plan. So in order to draw the elevation, we simply project a line up. That's that side of the wall, and then remember this is the front of the wall. The front of the wall is down, so the front edge of the wall is here, not here. So we're going to draw a line straight up, and then in order to draw that wall, it is simply a rectangle that corresponds to those 2 lines we just drew, and then we can set that to medium filled light, and there's our wall. And then we can just delete these 2 lines. So by lining them up, the elevation and the plan, it does 2 things. It allows you to just use the dimensions you've already established here and without having to remeasure things, and it also lets the viewer check and make sure they understand how these two things correlate to each other. If they're not lined up, then it's difficult to tell that. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to move to wall B. So we're going to start here and draw this line, and then we're going to start. Now in this case, it's going to be here, and we're going to draw up. Now, why did I do that? Well, if you look at the plan here, what we're drawing is the front of the wall. We're not concerning ourselves with the actual thickness of the wall because, to be perfectly honest, we may not know. It's probably going to be somewhere in the range of 3 inches, but the technical director or the shop may have some other, unless we specifically specify how thick the wall needs to be. And usually, if from the design elevation standpoint, we don't really care. So it's entirely possible that the technical director is going to decide that she wants to make this corner differently. And to be perfectly honest, because this is what's called an inside corner, and then this is what's called an outside corner, you don't even really in theater world, you don't even really have to make them touch. You could just build them like this and leave this gap here, and nobody would know, right? The audience would not know. So there are ways of attaching them together if you leave that gap there. So that's really sort of up to the shop, not to the designer. So that's why we're not concerning ourselves too much with this corner. Down here, you can't leave a gap. You have to do something. You have to either miter it or you have to, well, in this case, that's the easiest thing to do is to miter it. But there are other ways of dealing with it. But we're just showing in these plans what the front of the wall looks like. So we're sort of ignoring this part of the wall. So there's our overall rectangle, but before we draw that, I'm going to go ahead and draw in the holes where the windows go. So the holes where the windows go start here and here. Because we use the window symbol, these white rectangles represent the frame of the hole, if it were. So we're not concerning ourselves with those. We're just looking at this line, which is it defines the hole where the window is. So I'm going to draw this, and then we're going to do the same thing over here. Going to draw that and that. All right, and then we're going to go back and look at our example, and we're going to see that the bottom of the window is 3 feet 1 from the bottom of the wall, and then the window itself is 4 feet 6 tall. So 3 feet 1 and 4 feet 6. So we're going to draw a line right here, the bottom of the wall, and we're going to move it up 3 feet 1. So 0y 3 feet 1x. I just totally said that backwards. 0x 3 feet 1y. Wow. And then we're going to draw a line on top of that and move that up 4 feet 6. So 0x 4 feet 6y, and that's going to determine the top of the window. So now we can draw our rectangles. So we're going to draw this rectangle, which represents the entire wall, and we're going to change that to medium filled light. And once again, as I said in a previous video, the gray fill is a Bert thing. It's perfectly acceptable to fill it with white or to not fill it at all. I think it's easier to make it filled, but if any of you have previous experience in AutoCAD, you might think that having filled rectangles is the worst thing ever. So feel free to not fill them or fill them with white. So now you'll see that I've covered up my layout lines. So I'm going to do a modify send to back to send this rectangle to the back so that I can get to my layout lines. And I'm going to draw these two rectangles. So this one and this one, which represent the holes in the wall where the window is. I'm going to set those to, why is that showing me two different classes? Let's see. So that rectangle and that rectangle. Okay, I'm going to set those to pens, medium filled light. And then I'm going to go ahead and change that to white because those actually are holes. So that's the overall place where the windows go, and then I can go ahead and erase my layout lines. All right, so now we have, I can erase these two. We have the wall with the two holes where the two windows go. So now we're going to start drawing in the details of the windows. So we're going to look at our reference drawing. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit. And we're going to see that, so the hole is right here. So let's zoom in a little bit more. This is the frame of the sash, which is, you know, the actual window part of the window. This is molding on the outside of the window. So this is the hole that we just drew. So the first thing we're going to do is establish this 1.5 inch sort of frame around the outside of the glass. So we're going to go back to here. We're going to select our rectangle, and we're going to use the offset tool. And I can't remember if we've used this before. Maybe we have, but the offset tool is a pretty handy tool. So if we select that, we can leave the defaults the same. And what we want to do is offset 1.5 inches, so 1.5. And then so if with an object selected, if you select the offset tool, and if you click inside, it will offset to the inside. If you were to select that object, and I'm holding down Command on the Mac to reselect the original object. If I clicked on the outside, it would offset it to the outside. So it offsets on whichever side you click on. I'm gonna delete that. So if you click inside the object, it offsets it to the inside. If you click outside the object, it offsets it to the outside. If it's a single line, if you click to the left, it offsets to the left. If you click to the right, it offsets to the right, etc. All right, so there is our frame. So let's go back and reference our drawing again. So then we have these lines that separate the panes of glass, and those are called muntins, and those are 1 inch apart. And then we have the frame that that separates, or is the top of the bottom sash, or the bottom of the top sash, which is 1.5 inches. It's the same size as the sides. So we can do some math and we can figure out what these rectangles are, or we can let Vectorworks do the math for us. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one big rectangle that's the size of the glass that's left when I subtract 1 inch for this, 1.5 inches for this, 1 inch for this. So that's 1, 2, 3.5 inches vertically, and 1 inch for this horizontally. So 3.5 and 1. So we're going to take this, we're going to duplicate it and put it right where it was. And then I'm going to subtract 1 inch from the width. So there's -1, and 3.5 minus 3.5. And the nice thing is Vectorworks actually will just do the math. If you put in a plus or a minus over here, it will do the math for you. So I've subtracted my 1 inch wide muntin in the middle, and my 2 1 inch wide and 1.5 inch wide muntin in this direction. And if I go back and look at this, I've got 8 panes of glass that I need to now divide this one pane of glass into. So I've got 2 columns of 4 each, and I'm going to let Vectorworks do that for me too. So modify drafting aids. We're going to do an even divide, and we're going to make 2 divisions in width and 4 divisions in height. And there are our panes. So we can do the math without actually doing the math. So this 1 inch is of course supposed to be in the center here. So what I'm going to do is select all 4 of these, and I'm going to modify, move them over 1 inch. So 1 inch, 0. So there's that. And then there should be 1 inch separating these two. So I'm going to select the bottom 6 and Do I actually have... Sometimes it's hard to tell. I don't want that one. There we go. Okay. Should say 6. It does. So then we're going to move those 0x and minus 1y. All right. And then I'm going to hold on shift and deselect these two. So now I'm going to move these 4 down 1.5 inches because they're the ones in the middle. Move minus 1.5. And then I'm going to deselect these 2, and I'm going to move the last 2 down 1 inch. Minus 1. All right, so sort of an easy way of doing that without having to do all the math. You're welcome to do the math if you want, but these come out to be very strange sizes. They're 1.25 feet by 11 7/8. So, at any rate, all right. So this is close to what we want, but if we look at this closely, you'll see that the lines that where these things intersect are not there, and that's because the drafting convention is that even though we probably know this is made with 2 separate pieces of wood, if you have pieces that are on the same plane where there's no difference in height or elevation, you don't actually show the line there. You usually don't show construction lines. You only show lines where things physically change height or elevation. So we need to get rid of the lines that are here. And there are a couple of ways we can do that, but I'm going to choose this way. So I'm going to select this rectangle, and then all of the 8 rectangles here. So it's the big rectangle in the back and those. Then I'm going to do a modify clip surface. And then I'm going to hit delete. So I'm left with that. I probably should have deleted that. I mean, I should have duplicated the one that we subtracted from first, but I didn't. So I'm going to go ahead and draw that. I'm going to use my line inferencing here. I'm going to draw that back in. Or, you know what? There's an easier way. I'm just going to go to here and use the offset tool again and put that back. So now I'm going to take this and select these 2 and do another clip surface to create just this outline frame. So modify clip surface, and I'm going to hit delete. Then I can take these 2 and now add them together. Modify add surface, and now we have our window without the lines. There is one line here that we need, that because there is an elevation change there. That line indicates the top of the bottom sash, and then of course the bottom of the top sash is underneath this part of the window, so we don't need to draw that. But now I'm going to go ahead and change this pen to medium. We're going to set all of this to medium filled light. Why is it not doing that? Probably because I have a... That's interesting. Oh, color by class. There we go. All right, that's what was going on there. And then I have inadvertently erased the whole. So I'm gonna duplicate this rectangle and put it back here, and then we're gonna send backwards a couple of times. There we go. There are a couple of different workflows that you can do to do this. There's probably a more efficient way of doing that, but ultimately this is what you want to end up with. So there is our window. So now we're going to draw in the molding. So this is a 3-inch wide molding around the window, a 1-inch thick window sill. So we're going to go back here and we're going to use our double line tool. Here we're going to set our separation to 3 inches, and we're just going to and we're going to be in this mode, the right control mode. We're going to draw around here like that. Double click to finish. And then we can draw in our windowsill. So we're going to draw the rectangle here. We're going to use our snapping. And if for some reason yours isn't snapping, make sure that you have snap to object and snap to intersection and smart points turned on over here. But we're going to draw this. We're going to get to here. I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to tab over to the Y. I'm going to do -1. There's our windowsill. And if we look back at our drawing, we'll see that it extends past the edge. There isn't a dimension here, but I'm pretty sure that's an inch. So this needs to go 1 inch in this direction and 1 inch in that direction. So I'm going to make sure I have it selected, and then object info and width, I'm just going to add 2 inches plus 2. It'll do that. And then I need to move, I'm going to move it out of the way and grab it by its center and center it again. And then finally, I'm going to put the 3-inch wide molding underneath the windowsill. So we're going to start here. We're going to, is it not going to let me do that? Okay, fine. So we're going to go over to here. I'm going to tab. I'm going to go -3. And then I'm going to move that down an inch. Move -1. Actually, I already had that. So there's that. So I'm going to select all of those and set them to medium filled light. And then the last thing is, for that molding, there is this detail that just to show that it's molding. There's a profile to this molding. You can't really tell. There would have to be another drawing that shows the actual molding, but there's sort of a ridge around the outside edge of it. And this isn't this is not dimensioned anywhere, but I just happen to know, because I drew this, that this is an inch of separation here. So we're going to go back to here. We're going to go back to our double line tool. We're going to change the separation to an inch. And now I think we do want the left control mode. And then we're just going to draw this. Oops, double click to finish. And we're going to change that to thin. And then we're going to change it to have no fill. So there is our finished drawing of the window. We can then select all of that and group it together. That was an interesting sound effect at that moment. Yours probably won't do that. And then I can just copy it and put it over here. But in order to do that, I need to be able to select this later. So I'm going to do this thing that we've done before. We're going to draw a random line, and then we're going to group those two things together. Then I can copy this, Command C, and then Command V to paste it, and then I'm going to grab it by this corner right here, because this corresponds with where the hole is. So I'm going to grab it by that corner and put it right there, and then I can just delete that, and there is my wall with the two windows. Should look like that. And as I said, we're going to draw all the walls first, and then we're going to go back and put the molding in. So there is the wall with the windows. So that is the traditional way that elevations have been done for, hundreds of years. It was, of course, done with a pencil or a pen before we started using CAD. But the traditional way is to lay out the plan, elevate the lines up, and draw in the details. And you certainly could just finish the elevations like that. But we're going to harness the power of the 3D walls that we've drawn, so that we can eliminate some of that work. So this is our 2D drawing. These are our 2D tops of the walls, but remember that these are in, whoa, unnecessary zoom. These are actually 3D walls, so we can take advantage of that. So if we go to here and look at front, you'll see that all of these walls are already drawn for us because we use the wall tool. Now, there's some extra lines and things, but if you set the rendering mode here from wireframe to either shaded or hidden line, then you'll start to see what we have there. So some of the walls are almost done. They need some molding drawn in. But you'll notice that our windows and our door don't have the details that we just drew in 2D. But we can, with one exception, we can set the symbols to match what our 2D drawing looks like. So let's do that. So just to recap, once again, here we are in top plan, and here's our 2D drawing. We're going to go to front and see the 3D version of the walls. Then we're going to select our two window symbols. We're going to do them both at the same time. And we're going to put ourselves in shaded because that obscures some things that we don't necessarily want to see. The first thing you should know is this rectangle around the outside edge is not the window molding that we just drew. This is the frame of the whole. So right now what we have is a framing out a hole in the wall with an interior frame that has glass in it. So we need to change that into the window that we want. So we're going to select both of those. Then we're going to go to Object Info, and we can do some of this here, and then we're going to have to go into settings to do some of it. But the first thing is we're going to change the sash operation from casement to double hung, which is what the windows that we want are. So this is a double hung window. I can't remember if I said this in a previous video, but this is called double hung because it has two sashes. It has a top sash and a bottom sash. This is a window that opens. So double hung, that's step one. Then the next thing we want to do is set the elevation. And we're going to remember it was 3 feet 1, so 3 feet 1. You'll notice these going to move down oddly because right now the elevation is set at the head of the window or the top. What we want to do is set the elevation at the sill of the window. So we've just told Vectorworks that this distance is 3 foot 1. And then we can reselect these and put in the height of the window. Our height was 4 feet 6. All right, so far so good. The next thing we need to do is deal with the width of the outside frame of the sash. Let's see if we can do this here or if we need to. Yeah, okay, so jam and sash. So our sash width is 1.5 inches, not 2 inches, so 1.5. So let it think for a minute and we'll do that. Okay, good. We're going to get back to the sill. We want the muttons, which are the divisions between the glass. So we're going to windows can have different sashes, different mutton arrangements in the different sashes. These are actually both identical, but that's why you can pick between the top sash or the bottom sash. We're going to just do the top one first. It doesn't really make any difference. But so vertical muttons, we have 1, so it will do that. And then horizontal, we also have 1. So we'll get that pattern. And then if you remember, our width was 1 inch. And our depth is also going to be an inch, which is how we get rid of the lines there. We make the depth of the mountains the same as the depth of the frames. In real life, sometimes there actually is a difference, but almost always on stage, it's they match. Sometimes there's some routing going on, or some bolding or something, but usually they match and it's the same thing. So there's our top mountain, top sash, and then if we just click bottom sash, it should replicate, what we did for the top. You can change it, but if you want it to be the same, you can just set it to be the same. Why? What is this? That's an interesting. Not sure what this extra line is right here. It didn't do that yesterday when I did this. We'll have to see if we can figure out what that is. For right now, let's just ignore that, maybe. What a weird. Huh. Very interesting. You also can change the the style here. I'm a little confused by what this extra line is here now. Oh, I know exactly what that is. That's the piece of molding that keeps the sash from falling out of the window, but I don't know why there would be one across the top here. That seems inaccurate, but at any rate, that is what it is. So that's why sometimes it's easier to draw. If you want total control over it, drawing it yourself in 2D is sometimes better than using the 3D symbols. But so there's that. Then we're going to put in the trim. So we're going to include interior trim, and it was 3 inches wide, if you remember. Okay. And then we are going to add the window sill. So sill, yes, please include sill. And we need to make this wider. You'll notice that we don't really have any options here, so now we have to go into settings in order to do that. So settings, we're going to go to the sill, and what we're looking for is the extension. Yeah, so here, this is how far the sill extends past the hole in the wall, and we want ours to extend 4 inches, I think. Let's see what happens if we do 4. I'm gonna hit return. So I guess it's only 3. Sometimes trying to figure out exactly what they're asking for is weird. I'm gonna click OK. Okay, there's some other things that we're going to change that we can't actually. This actually looks okay. If we go back to the top view, however, you'll see that we have this giant thick windowsill that might be appropriate in a real building, but we don't want it that big on stage. So we're going to go back to settings, and we're going to set the depth, which is I've set to 1 foot now. I'm going to change that to 6 inches. See if that doesn't make more sense. Yeah, that makes more sense. Okay. And remember, this is still just our 2D drawing that's there. So now we're going to go back to front. Yes, please. We're going to go back to shaded. And the last thing we need to do is set the molding. Our window has molding under the sash. Under the sill, sorry. So we're going to go back to trim, and we're going to include trim under sill, which Really? So only do it on the outside? We want to include it under the stool? Yeah, strange. And this is one of the things I said, that sometimes you can't get it exactly the same. We'll have to go into settings and see if there's a way to make that extend down. So let's go into settings. And trim. Include trim under stool. Okay. And there doesn't appear to be any way to tell it how far under to extend. So I will say, and the couple of you who've taken the 3D class already, which is slightly out of order, will know that you can certainly design your own custom windows and you can make them do whatever you want. So what I'm sort of showing you here is how to kind of use the built-in tools to get as close as you can to what you want, which is often what you do in like a preliminary design, or sometimes this might be what you want. If you're doing a contemporary house, this is probably fine. Older houses tend to have more molding, so either you can use this as a preliminary design and then alter it later, create your own windows if you want something more elaborate, or this might actually be what you want. So next we're going to look at our door, and of course in this particular drawing we just have a doorway. So we basically just need to add the molding to it. So we're gonna select our wall with the door, put ourselves in shaded, and then we can because I can't, well, maybe I can select it. Let's see if I do that. Yeah, I have to, because there's nothing there, because it's just a hole, there's nothing to click on to select really, so in order to select it I kind of have to drag over it. But there's our door and wall. So what we really need to do is just turn on the trim. But in order to do that, this is probably set to opening. It needs to be set to cased opening, just slightly different than what we did with the ground plan. Then it will let me, I believe, turn the trim on. Yep. Include interior trim. We're going to set that to 3 inches. And there is our trim. We can do some things later to add that little 1-inch detail to the trim, because the door has the same detail that the window trim does. So there are all of our walls drawn with their major elements. Now what we need to do is just go in and put in the molding. And this is pretty simple molding. It's crown molding at the top and baseboard at the bottom, and these are just this is actually what baseboard might actually look like. Would be very strange crown molding, but just for the purposes of the drawing, we're going to use the same visual representation, which is a 6-inch thick rectangle with 2 detail lines that are 1 inch in each direction, so 1 inch from the top and 1 inch from the bottom. So if we go to our 2D walls and So if we go to our 2D walls and start to draw the molding, one of two things will happen. It will either work or it won't. So let's see if mine will work. And mine does not work. Yours might work. It entirely depends on where you established your 3 original lines to draw the 2D walls. So I just drew this rectangle that's going to be the baseboard at the bottom, and you'll notice that you can't see it, right? And the reason for that is because now that we're in 3D, I am drawing on a plane that is behind the wall. So if I go to top plan, you'll see that I just drew this rectangle here. My wall is here, so I'm drawing behind the wall. So the way to remedy that is, if you're in fact having that problem, find the origin over here, find 0, and draw a line. And then just make sure that select everything you drew originally, if you can get the arrow tool to work. And, oh, wrong layer. I added a details layer, which you don't need to add. I'm just going to move everything up so that it's above 0. So now, then I'm going to get back to this detail layer that you don't need, and I'm going to delete that line. To delete this layer. Yes, please. So now when I go back to the front, I should be able to actually go back to shaded. I should be able to actually draw on top. Oh, look, I can. Okay, great. So I am able to do that. So we're gonna draw our molding, but it occurs to me that before we do that, we should probably draw in the representation of the stairs. So we need to, on elevation D, we need to show that there's a platform sitting in front of this wall, because the shop or whoever's building this needs to know that either this wall needs to be built short so that it can sit on top of the platform, or that there's a platform sitting in the front of the wall, so they may not need to face the wall all the way down or whatever. So you just need to make the people who are building the wall aware of the fact that the wall is interfacing with this landing, and that this wall is also interfacing with this landing. So if we go back to our plan view, we'll see that this distance is 2 feet 9, so that's the width of the wall, and this one is 4 feet. I'm just remembering, and our walls are our steps are a foot. So, and then we have 6, 12, 18, right? I think. Is that how big the stairs are? Let's look and see. 8 inches. 8, 16, 24. I think I made them a different size here. Yeah, it doesn't really matter. I made them 6 inches in this drawing. We'll make them consistent. So this level is at 24 inches. So what we're going to do is go back to here, and we're going to find wall A, B, C, D, and E. So back to front. Back to front. Okay. A, B, C. So it's these two walls, D and E. We're just shaded. So we're going to draw a rectangle here. I'm going to tab and make this 24 inches high. Okay. And then we're going to set that to, did we do a hatched? I don't know if we did or not. Drafting pens. Yep, medium hatch. We sure did. Except, did I not actually fill it with a hatch? Haha. All right, so we're gonna set that to hatched. There we go. So that's what that looks like. I don't like that hatch. Do we have a different hatch? Theater hatch is the one we have. All right. So that's the one we're going to use. Then we can copy that, paste it over here, and remember it's wider, it's 4 feet wide, so we're going to make it 4 feet wide. Okay, so far so good. And then let's look back at our ground plan, and we'll see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps up to a landing. So front. So we're going to do this. We're going to draw a rectangle that is 12 inches wide and 8 inches high. That represents the each step. Put that there, and I'm going to duplicate that. So that's the second step, and 3, 4, 5, and I'm going to go ahead and do 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That seems. Oh, you know what? I bet these walls. See, drafting is one of the ways that you find out that things are problematic. Does anybody see what the problem is? These walls are only 10 feet tall, and they're supposed to be 12 feet tall. And I noticed that because I was drafting, and I went, if somebody's standing here, they're going to be okay, but if somebody's standing here, their head's going to stick up above the top of the set, so that's a problem. So I need to change the height of these walls to 12 feet, but fortunately that's easy. So so there's that. So then what we need to do in order to make this is we can do a couple of things. We can draw some more shapes, or we can just use the 2D polygon tool to trace around this shape, which is what we're going to do. So we're going to use the 2D polygon tool. We're going to click here, and we're just going to trace around. I'm just clicking at every sort of intersection. It should complete itself when it's done. Then I'm going to go back and delete all of the elements that I used to create that. And then I'm going to put this in the medium hatch, even though it's not hatched, class. And then we're going to add a hatch to this, theater hatch. Okay. So there is that. Then we can start putting in the molding. So I'm going to go back to shaded so I can tell what's going on. So if we look at our reference drawing, let's zoom out. There is no molding on A and I. All of the other walls have both baseboard and crown molding. So we're gonna do that. So we're going to draw this rectangle, and it wants to be 6 inches high. Why I typed 8, I'm not sure, but 6, okay. We're going to go ahead and set that to medium filled light. And we're going to change that to white so that it matches the other, the 3D sort of molding that we have. And then we're going to draw these two detail lines. So there's going to be one there and one here. And after we've drawn that, we're going to move that down an inch. And we're going to move this one, this one up an inch. And then we're going to set both of those to, why do I have 5 objects? That's weird. 1, 2. Very strange. Okay. Drafting, pens, thin. All right. Then I can. Oh, and I guess I should point out now that when you'll notice that this is odd. These are different line weights and they're not showing up. It's because when you're not in top plan view in 3D, the pen weights don't show up. They will show up when you viewport, but they're not going to show up right now. So you just have to be aware of that. So I'm going to select all three of these things and I'm going to group them together. So then I can just duplicate this molding and put it on. Why is that not snapping? Where it goes there. All right. So there's molding there. There's molding here. And the reason it's not snapping is because I'm not on the same plane as the wall. So this is one of the drawbacks to actually using the sort of hybrid 2D, 3D method, is it doesn't give you as much control in 2D. So I'm just going to keep duplicating this and putting it in where it goes. Mostly it's just at the top and the bottom of the walls. Here, this is a little bit strange in terms of design, and it probably looks like this. There's that. And this one goes here. There. Actually, this one's already cut to size, so we're gonna use that one. And finally, so I'm going to duplicate both of these here. All right. So that should be the drawing of all of the walls. So then the last thing we need to do is viewport it onto a sheet layer and do dimensions and nodes. So we are going to go to the sheet layer. Let's see, I need to make sure my sheet layers are turned on. They are. Oh, here we are. Okay, so we had our drawing on this layer, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete 11 by 17 and 24 by 36. I'm going to right click on here and delete this. So we don't need that. And I'm going to delete this one. I'm going to right click and delete that one. And then I'm actually going to rename this one. So ground plan. And this is going to be sheet 1. And then I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to just right click and I'm going to duplicate it. And we're going to call this one 3 because we're doing these out of order. Whoops. We're going to do the section, which is 2, last. So this is the elevation, which is 3. And we're going to call this elevation. I can either just right click or I can. All right. So making sure that I'm in the one that I want to be in, I can go ahead and delete the ground plan. Now the ground plan will still be there if I go back to sheet 1, but we're going to make this elevations. So while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go ahead and edit my title block. So this says elevations. I should put caps lock on. Elevations, and this is actually going to be plate 3. Move that over so you can actually see it. And then we'll keep exiting. Okay, so now we're going to go back to our scenery layer and we're going to create a viewport by dragging a rectangle over all the walls and view, create viewport. And yes, I want to use the rectangle because that's why I drew it. We're going to put this on the elevations layer. We want to be in 1/2 inch scale. You can always change that layer. But and for right now, we're gonna use shaded, but we're probably gonna change that later. So if we click OK, it should do that. Great, and you'll notice that they're not all going to fit, but that's okay. We can fix that. So let's just play around a little bit. So if we can make A, B, C, D fit if we do one line of them, and then we can make the others A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and O, they almost fit. So it looks like that my initial guess of having these 4 feet apart is a little off. Maybe they should have been 3 feet apart instead. So let's delete this and go back to scenery. And we're just going to do this. We're going to select all of this and move minus 12 inches. Minus 12. All right, then we're going to select all of this. And it's 12. Interesting. I got the 2D move the first time. The 3D move, and now the 2D move. It doesn't really matter. So we're just going to keep selecting one less each time and moving them a foot to the left. So they're slightly less close together. It's not uncommon to discover this because you don't know until you're finished the drawing. I mean, I could have figured it out because I already know what the drawing is supposed to look like, but you don't know until you've drawn it all how much space it's all going to take. So sometimes you have to make some adjustments. I also could have created individual viewports for each wall and moved the viewports around, but this seems like it's a whole lot easier just to do this. So that's what we're doing. And I actually didn't really need to delete that viewport. I could have just left it, but I did. So now we're going to draw it again. So there's that, and then view, create viewport. Yes, please. All of these settings should have stayed the same. Well, interesting, they didn't. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't. We're going to move that back to a 1/2 inch. Elevations, render, settings, shaded. Okay, all good. All right, so now we should hopefully discover that if we put those on that level, then these will all fit there, which in fact they do. Okay, good. So we're going to put this here. Going to move that fairly close up to the top. And we're going to duplicate that, Command D, and we're going to put this set of them here. And then we're going to double click this and we're going to edit the crop. So that we're just going to select these. And then we're going to double click this and we're going to edit the crop. And we're only going to select those. So then that will make them all fit. I'm going to go ahead and sort of line this up there just so that they work well together. Okay. And then I want to, I think I'm going to move them both over to the left a little bit because I'm a little bit crowded right there. Okay. Then I want to add in the ground plan view. So I can do this. I'm going to duplicate this viewport. And over here, I'm going to change the view from front to top plan. And it will change to show me the top plan view. And then I'm going to double click that and edit the crop again to do this. And in case you're wondering what these lines are, this is all of the 2D stuff that we drew in front of the 3D wall. So they're not actually on the wall. There is a way that you can line it up so that you're actually drawing it on the same plane. That gets into a much more 3D than we're dealing with right now. So we're just going to ignore it. But so if I edit the crop there, I get that, and then I can take that and line it up here. And then let's say we're going to move this down, I don't know, maybe an inch. Because remember, we're in real scale, full scale, and the sheet layer is not in scale. So there's an inch. That seems pretty good. And then I can either duplicate this viewport and then just change the crop and double click so that I get these, or I can make a new viewport, or I can duplicate the bottom viewport and change the view. There are all sorts of ways that I can accomplish that. But once I get that, we're going to put this here. I'm going to move it down an inch. All right. This red line we don't need, so we're going to go back to scenery and we're going to delete that red line, and this red line, and this red line. Remember, there were 3 of them that we drew. So then if we go back to the elevations layer, we should see that that red line is in fact gone. Yay! Now this looks a little crowded to the bottom, so I'm going to select both of these and nudge it up a little bit. And this looks like it needs to come down some. Why did those move? Didn't I have those lined up? Oh, I guess when I duplicated it, I grabbed the wrong one. There are days when I'm really on top of the drafting, and other days when Vectorworks defeats me. So this is a Vectorworks defeation. Defeation? That's not a word. This is a Vectorworks victorious day. All right, so they're all my walls. So then I'm going to select all of the these 2 viewports and put them in, I think, rather than shaded, we're going to put them in hidden line mode. And then the red outline indicates that they need to be updated, and we'll also say over here update. So we're going to click on update. So there we have the drawings of all of the walls. Doing it in 2D, in 3D like this, gives us a little less control over the 2D aspects. I do get line weights. What I don't get is the ability to have the filled, the gray filled walls, which is fine. There is a way to do that, but that gets into rendering in 3D, so we're not going to not going to deal with that. So the final thing is to look at our drawing here, and we need to add dimensions and notes. So I'm going to do the first one with you, and then you can see what the rest of them look like. You should just add in the rest of the dimensions and notes. So I'm going to double click on the viewport and go into annotations, and we will just do this. And I believe if I look back at the, yeah, I've done all of the vertical, or most of the vertical dimensions in the plan view, sorry, in the elevation view, and most of the horizontal dimensions, not all of them, but most of them in the plan view. So that's what we're gonna do here. They are, of course, two separate viewports, so you have to just keep that in mind. But so this is going to be a 3-foot wall, right? Okay, 3 feet. And then there's a label, and there's some. There are two schools of thought on how to do these labels. You can either do them inside the annotations, or you can do them on top of the annotations, which sometimes makes it a little bit easier to line up. I think I'm going to try doing it inside the annotation. I looked at that so I can remember what it says. So this is elevations A and I and plan view. So we're going to go in here. Okay, we're just going to type elevations A and I. Ooh, that's very large. I wasn't paying attention to what I was typing. Let's change that to dimension. And yeah, that's that's better. I'm gonna put that here on center, and then I'm gonna, I don't know, move that down. I'm gonna move it down a specific amount because I want them all to line up, and if I move it a specific amount, it's easier to do that. Or I can line them all up at the end, either way. So I'm going to move that down ½ an inch, minus 0.5. Oh, right, I'm in scale now. So I'm going to move it down 12 inches. Which, so we're going to go down 12. And the reason I'm going down that far is because I want to leave myself room to do some dimensions. I think, do I need that? No, actually I don't. I thought maybe I might need some dimensions at the bottom of these walls, but I don't. So I'm gonna go back and move that up 6 inches. All right, so we're gonna have that. I might set that to Arial black. It's not absolutely necessary, but now I have to line it up again. So here, modify, move, we never know that we're going down 6. And the reason I didn't edit out all of the mistakes I've been making today is because part of the point here is some of this is trial and error, and you just have to kind of figure it out as you're going along. So, so this is going to be elevation B. If I move, really? And of course it's elevation, not elevations. And you would do the same thing for the rest of the walls, and then it will do the same thing for the here. So it's going to say plan. So I'm going to just actually go back and copy this. Edit, copy. I'm going to go into this one. Paste this here, and it's going to say plan. Wow. All right. If I move my, come on, move -6. Okay, so there's that. So you'll just want to do all of those. So you'll notice that the detail lines in the molding have mysteriously disappeared. Sometimes when you're using 2D tools in one of the 3D views, so any of the views other than top plan, their behavior can be unpredictable. So we're going to go back and make a quick fix to solve this problem. We're going to go back to the scenery layer, and the problem is that sometimes with 2D objects, when the lines and the rectangles are occupying the same space at the same time, so it doesn't know which, because it's thinking in 3D now, because we're in a 3D view, it doesn't know what's in front, when in fact nothing is in front. They're all in the same place at the same time, so they sort of cancel each other out. So we're just going to select all of the molding and set the fill to none. And then if we go back to the elevations and select both of the viewports and click update, then yeah, everything shows up. So there's the solution there. So what you're going to want to do is just finish this out, take a look at the example page, fill in all of the dimensions and notes and labels. This is obviously from an earlier version of the project, so your title block is going to be different, but fill out your title block information. So you should end up with a drawing that looks very similar to this. So when you're done with that, save it as a PDF and submit it. So good luck.